Okay, hi, my name is Nishka and I'm a final year English student. Today I'm going to be talking about stress, anxiety and well-being. I know a lot of advice on these topics can be quite repetitive, and though they are true and helpful, I thought I'd try and include some content that hopefully is something you haven't seen or heard before, just taking a slightly different approach. Quick trigger warning and disclaimer. So trigger warning, some things I'm going to mention are mental health, stress, anxiety, diet and exercise. So if that gets to anyone, feel free to watch. And as for the disclaimer, I just want to mention I'm not a professional or medically qualified, but this presentation is based on online research, talking to people, getting their take on things and personal experience. So I just want to make clear as well that unfortunately there's no quick fix to these issues, but hopefully this can help with some perspective, inspiration or reassurance. Okay, so we're going to discuss the meanings of the terms in the titles, so stress, anxiety and well-being, and the causes of stress and anxiety, other causes of poor well-being, and then I'll go into a bit more depth on loneliness, personal trauma and attitude towards yourself, tips to manage stress and anxiety, tips to maximize well-being and support services. So, of course, we all know what stress feels like, but I think it's important to understand how we feel properly, just so we understand ourselves better. So stress is how we react when we feel we're under pressure or threatened, normally in situations that we feel we can't manage or we're not in control. Biologically, our HPA axis in our brain coordinates our response to stress through hormone regulation. So feeling stress for extended periods of time or chronically can eventually train our brains to live in survival mode, which can cause both mental and physical health complications, which we obviously don't want. Anxiety, this is how we feel when we're worried, tense, or afraid, particularly when things are about to happen or which we think something could happen in the future, so like dread. Anxiety is a natural human response, and we feel this when we're under threat. It can be experienced through our thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations, and it can manifest differently in different people. It can often have triggers, such as certain people, sensations, or environments, but it's different for everyone. And well-being. So according to the Cambridge Dictionary, well-being is a state of feeling happy and healthy. And the CDC defines well-being as presence of positive emotions and moods such as happiness, excitedness, love and gratitude, the absence of negative emotions such as sadness, anxiety, fear and stress, and satisfaction with life, fulfillment and positive functioning. So there are 7 aspects of well-being, which is kind of elements of well-being, so what creates well-being as a whole. So identity, which is knowing and appreciating yourself. Connectedness, which is being connected to loved ones. Security, which is feeling safe within yourself and your environment. Autonomy, which is the freedom to choose and your sense of control. Meaning, which is just having a purpose and hope in your life. Growth, which is progressing and learning, and joy, which is having contentment and satisfaction. Then there are 7 pillars of well-being, which is different because these are things people can almost do to improve their well-being instead of what is well-being. So active living, healthy eating, restorative sleep, stress reduction and awareness, connection, passion and purpose, and gratitude. I also just want to emphasize that this is about general well-being. It's very simplified and generalizing, and it's not at all to invalidate people with poor well-being or further complications with mental health. So the society we live in unfortunately minimizes the significance of personal problems. They are valid and they're important, and a lot of the time they can cause stress and anxiety. So these are just some common examples of stress and anxiety, but of course there are more. So the ones I came up with were academic or family pressure, pressure on yourself, big changes in your life, lack of control over a situation, lack of control over your emotions, certain situations, environments or people, dreading something, so something upcoming, experiencing discrimination, bullying or negative social environments, expectations, be this of yourself, your environment, and health issues, which include physical and mental ones. Everyone deals with things differently, but this does not mean that either way of dealing with things is better nor more valid than the other. Now I'm going to talk about some other potential causes of poor well-being. So loneliness, personal trauma, and self-image is the ones I chose because I think they're quite important in this day and age. I think they're quite prominent. A lot of people are struggling with them. So hopefully the next few slides will provide some information or at least some reassurance and validation. So I wanted to talk about loneliness because it's getting increasingly prominent in people of our generation. I just thought with the days getting shorter and darker, we get to talk about it. So even if it just starts the conversation, if it opens the conversation, that's fine. So just to clarify, loneliness is not the same as being alone. You can feel alone, or you can be physically alone and be completely fulfilled, or you can be surrounded by people and feel lonely. This links back to the elements of well-being, the connectedness one, and it can become a really serious issue when it's not managed well and can lead to a lot of further health complications. So some common causes of loneliness include, again, are not limited to relationship issues, breakups, arguments, anything like that, not fitting into social groups, bereavement, changes in your life, and mental health issues, and physical health issues. And like I said, unfortunately, there isn't like a pill you can take, there's no quick fix, but hopefully some of these things can help. So spending time in nature, appreciate that you're part of something bigger and embrace it. So really spend time in nature, don't just do it to tick it off the list. You can talk to someone, for example, therapy, online chats, friend, mentor, your peer mentor, your personal tutor. It's really easy to find people online, like a buddy or a loved one. You can look on socials for help pages. There's a lot of content on Instagram, which is really helpful, and a lot of the solutions are quite contemporary and innovative. You can join the clubs like societies, new social groups, online groups, and try and spend time with yourself. And this does sound counterproductive, but try and embrace the loneliness and retrain your mind and reframe your mind to appreciate being by yourself and appreciate quality time with yourself. Okay, personal trauma. I've chosen this one because it's not talked about much. As I mentioned earlier, personal issues are often invalidated in our society. A lot of the time, the focus is on what you can produce or achieve, and these things inhibit. And things that inhibit this, such as personal trauma, is generally frowned upon, and this is programmed into our subconscious mind. So we try and minimize our own trauma. So trauma isn't only the things that come to mind when we say trauma, for example, like car accident, plane crashes, all of that. And though it does include those things, it can include things like death of a loved one, physical injury, breakups, arguments, life changes, significant thoughts that you've had that stick with you, mental illness, sexual assault, witnessing or hearing something, which then has an emotional impact on you, and so many more things. Realistically, trauma is a part of reality. Everyone goes through really tough times in their life. It alters our thoughts and our behaviour. We're trained to thug it out or keep pushing through it. And though this might work for some people, and that's great, it doesn't work for everyone. Personally, I spent so many years trying to keep pushing through things, and it never worked. And I honestly thought there was something wrong with me. But after a big change in my life, I started learning about other ways of coping with things that I'd previously seen as weak or nonsense. So instead of suppressing my sensitivity and not allowing myself to feel everything, I kind of lean into it and I try to notice the good things that come from it, for myself and others, and just learn to be more kind to myself and allow myself to feel things without judgment. And I recommend doing the same. So what I hope to get across from that example is that your emotional response is valid in the way that you deal with things needs to be based primarily off kindness to yourself, as opposed to forcing yourself to deal with things in a way that you feel you're supposed to. Okay, so attitude towards yourself. This links slightly to the last slide, but it takes a more general approach, so not only focusing on personal trauma and issues in your life. Honestly, I used to think the whole self-love scheme was nonsense, but I've learned in the past few years that attitude towards yourself is so important. It's the only thing we can control, and it frames our perspective through which we see the world, so anything and everything. Working on your attitude towards yourself makes life so much easier. Bad things happen is inevitable, stress is inevitable, and it's important to accept that, but I've noticed that it's significantly reduced when you work on yourself as your appreciation for yourself increases. So if you only take one thing away from this talk, it's just please be kind to yourself. This is rooted in the way you speak to yourself, both consciously and subconsciously. Though you can't necessarily control your subconscious, training your conscious mind will help implement these practices into your subconscious. On the screen are a few ways that you can be kind to yourself, and I'll explain them in a bit more detail. So self-talk, this is obviously the way you talk to yourself in your mind or out loud, whatever. As if you were speaking to the younger child version of you. Be kind, gentle, patient, understanding, and loving. Whether tough love, logic, or more gentle approach works for you, talk to yourself how you would your younger self or even your best friend. Self-validation. This is, of course, validating yourself instead of relying on external people or sources for it. So allow yourself to feel however you think. Feel however you feel and think however you think. You can choose how you outwardly react, so whatever's most appropriate for the situation you're in, but mentally allow yourself to just accept whatever goes on in your head. Don't judge yourself because it's not going to achieve anything, and fighting things will only make things worse. Remind yourself that however you think and however you feel is completely valid, even if you think it's not how you're supposed to be thinking or feeling. Next is gratitude. So this is just being grateful for the good and the bad. If we're only grateful for the good, then we're going to be very pessimistic. But actively appreciate the things you love about yourself and your life, and actively appreciate the bad as well, knowing that you will be taking a lesson from it. Some people find writing gratitude lists really helpful. A lot of people have started doing this recently. By doing this at the end of the day, you might be forced to notice things during the day that you want to write down. You'll be more aware. You'll start to notice things that you feel grateful for. So it's self-care. Obviously, we've all heard about this. All the basic self-care things that you hear, even if they don't necessarily help you directly, like face masks, walks, baths, whatever, it might feel useless, but actively and intentionally spending time to take care of yourself will program your mind to understand that you are worth being taken care of, you are worth that time and effort. Learning about yourself, okay. So learn what works best for you. This could be what self-care makes you feel the best. It could be what foods make you feel good, food makes you feel bad. It could be learning your learning style, try and notice patterns in your behaviors, interests, and thoughts, and start to observe yourself more carefully and take the time to get to know your mind properly. And finally, invest in yourself. So whatever is important to you and whatever makes you feel good, be it certain foods, clothes, hobbies, your environment, anything, but invest your time, money, and energy into things that will improve your well-being because it's worth it. So now tips to manage stress and anxiety. So I'm sure you've heard of most of the cliche tips like making lists, meditate, and those are very true, but I've tried to include some more that may be a bit different to what you previously heard. Of course, stress and anxiety can't be eliminated, but here are some tips that might help you manage it. So radical acceptance. This is a DBT technique, which is dialectical behavior therapy. And it's where instead of fighting reality and stressing about it, do the complete opposite. And that's why it's radical acceptance. Embrace what you can't change and wholly accept that you can't change it. The less you resist the inevitable, the better you feel. This is take practice, but once you get the hang of it, it does really help. A lot of the things, so be realistic is the second one. So a lot of the things we stress about are in our head and only in our head. So whatever you're stressing about is entirely valid and allow yourself to acknowledge that. Focus on the feeling. So don't focus on the feeling of being stressed. It's completely normal to feel stressed and anxious, especially at uni. So try not to focus on the feeling of being stressed and instead focus on the issue. Next, work smarter, not harder. This doesn't mean cheat. It means sometimes you just got to work more smart than hard. A lot of the time this can be more efficient. For example, if you have a huge to-do list, just get rid of the things that aren't properly necessary, or at least prioritize. So again, you can focus on what's important. Next, take a step back. Again, this might sound counterproductive, but just take a step back and don't overcomplicate things. Sometimes your mind gets so chaotic and you'll feel really chaotic because stress clouding your mind, but take a minute to get some perspective and focus on what's important. And lastly, go outside. I know this one sounds cliched, but it really helps you gain some perspective. You go outside, you notice that you're part of a bigger picture, you're going to start getting some perspective instead of getting caught up in the smaller things. And also fresh air has been proven to increase brain function, so that's a plus. Okay, so tips to maximize well-being. There are 4 main hormones that contribute towards happiness and well-being, and these are serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, and oxytocin. They all have slightly different effects and can be triggered by different activities. So here's some examples on the screen. So serotonin can be induced by meditation, spending time outside, activity and exercise and sun exposure. Dopamine can be induced by celebrating small wins, eating a rewarding meal, so something you like or something that's healthy, completing tasks, even small ones, even if that's a shower, brush your teeth, make your bed, get out of bed. Celebrate that you were able to do that. And intentionally practice self-care. So practice self-care with the intention of taking care of yourself instead of just get it done. Endorphins, this is the one that's normally associated with exercise. So of course, it's exercise and activity. Watch a good movie, laugh, watch something funny like stand-up comedy, or help others, so volunteering or charity work. Oxytocin is kind of like the love hormone, so it can be induced by physical affection, small acts of kindness, compliment someone, or spend time with loved ones, like friends and family. I also just want to mention that sometimes it's worth seeing a doctor and getting like blood tests done, because a lot of the time vitamin deficiencies or food intolerances can poorly impact your gut health and therefore your mental health, and it will really take a toll on your physical and mental well-being. So a lot of people go a long time feeling lethargic, or they go a long time feeling really like dazed or nauseous or anything, and after a while they've discovered they're celiac or vitamin D deficient or anemic, so yeah, sometimes it's worth getting tests done. And lastly, there's just a list of support services related to the uni. If you need more information, feel free to contact me, your peer mentor, or your personal tutor. So we have the counselling and wellbeing email address, the help and support, student services, the accessibility, which is really helpful for things like learning difficulties and disabilities. Student union and general advice have loads of different categories on their website, and the University Crisis 24/7 helpline. So that's the end. I hope it was helpful, or at least reassuring in some way, and thank you so much for listening.